is Hunter Kowalski. I am the nutrition and functional nutrition coach at Success Fitness and Training here. I am a board certified holistic health coach, functional nutrition coach, natural bodybuilder, and I'm currently going to school for functional medicine. So, the order of today's talk is going to basically be a compilation of a lot of the knowledge that I've obtained through school, different certifications, becoming board certified as a health coach, my actual clientele, client bases, and all of that, and work that I've done on myself, as well as several books and research studies and all of that, which I can certainly, send out and things like that. If it's something of interest for you, just let me know. Go ahead and email me. I will include my email. You can find it on our website, all of that kind of stuff. But basically, today we're going to be talking about ways to improve mental health and essentially lose weight via diet and supplementation. So going at it a little bit more specifically, we're going to be looking at how foods can affect our brain and gut health, what's gone wrong with our essentially gut health, brain health, all of that kind of stuff, what's gone wrong with our diet, gut testing options, so some options to test out what's going on in your body and to optimize what might be kind of off balance. Functional versus conventional GI diseases or issues. Kind of have a little bit of a explanation of like how we can work things functionally versus say replacing or giving this hormone or whatever it might be, like kind of a more conventional basis. And then neurotransmitters. So I have some information on neurotransmitters, some supplements, some diet, all that kind of stuff. Best diet for mental health supplements, action steps that you can take away from this. And my promise to you if you kind of implement some of these steps that I'm talking about. So, right off the bat, I just wanted to hit you with what the best diet is for mental health. I'll tell you right away, it's not the standard American diet or the SAD diet. Essentially, with the SAD diet, if you're following that, you would be considered overfed. You're getting too many calories, too much omega-6 fatty acids, and too many trans fatty acids as well. And you're undernourished. So you're not getting enough phytonutrients, mitonutrients, micronutrients, and all of the vitamins and minerals that our bodies need. So, just some general statistics. These are more so just based on children, but 33% of children ages 6 to 19 are overweight or obese. But 90% still need or still do not meet their daily nutrient requirements for vegetable intake. 75% don't meet their daily fruit requirements. And this is from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention article. And if this is where our children are lying, where do you think we are? We're probably no better, right? So, personally, I love taking in new clients and running a 7-day food log for them. So, basically, what this is I'm like, hey, client, right? Write down everything you eat for 7 days and tell me what it is. It's amazing how poor a lot of the standard American dieters, I guess you could say, how poor their diet is. And we use an app here at Success Fitness and Training called Chronometer. So this looks at phytonutrients, micronutrients, omega-3, omega-6 ratios, and also macronutrients. So that's how we can actually see where you're at and check your levels. So again, now what we have is a little quote here. So learn how to see, realize that everything connects to everything. How can the brain be affected by the food that we eat or gut health? And how can the brain be affected by poor gut health, right? So just one example here that we see. So you can look at this kind of example. So whenever there is a head injury, so say a soccer player or football player gets a head injury, you see acute and long-term brain inflammation. This causes lowered neuron firing, which basically just pathways that send signals through and from the brain. This causes lowering in vagal flow, which is basically this is lowering digestive functions within the gut or the GI system, which then causes more GI complaints in individuals and eventually can cause leaky gut in individuals as well. And what this is if you're trying to look at this, say you're trying to do some research on this or whatever it might be, this would actually be intestinal permeability. And basically, that is what you're going to find in more of the research. Now, once again, looking at how the brain can be affected by food or gut health, we can see increased inflammation in the periphery and within the brain arising from long-term stress exposure. So just as how we see with the head injury, how this can cause all of these down cascading issues, we can see the same kind of alteration in brain health, gut health, and all of that kind of stuff through long-term exposure of stress. So basically, neurons are messengers that send or carry information, and remember them. I like to remember them as little like Amazon delivery neurons or deliverers. And what we see here is lowered BDNF, which is brain derived neurotrophic factor. And this is associated with basically degenerative diseases and neurological loss, things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Huntington's, and multiple sclerosis. Vagal afferents from the gastrointestinal tract are critical for monitoring various aspects of digestion. So this is kind of looking at the lowered vagal flow here. And basically, these are all going to be affected from stress or an acute kind of head injury. So this lowering then causes, like I talked about, that leaky gut, right? Which is more increased intestinal, basically permeability within the walls of your gut, which can cause a lot of issues. And then here's just another example of how the gut and the brain can be connected. So the gut brain axis essentially right here. So stress influences anxiety, influences on mood, which all of these basically influence on the neurotransmitters over here. And then these influence digestion, nutrient transportation, gut microbiome health, health, and then the motility of basically our whole GI system. So we see within the GI system, the motility is basically how long it takes for our body to digest whatever the food is that we're eating, right? And then the next slide here. So the gut brain axis and enteric nervous system, ENS, that's going to be basically be everything, or the central nervous system or the general nervous system that governs all of the functions of the gut or the GI systems. It runs from the esophagus essentially all the way through the last exiting portion of the body, right? It is embedded in the lining of the GI system. So it controls everything that happens after the food is ingested through essentially chewing and swallowing and all that. And then the enteric nervous system basically takes over from there, right? The gut is connected to the brain through thick nerve cables that can transfer information in both directions. So this is, again, just an example how this all is connected, right? Those thick nerve cables are kind of what transfer the information in both directions. So just how basically if you're having a bad day mentally, your gut can be affected. Motility and all that can be affected as well. It can be lowered or increased for some individuals. Same with the gut. If your gut is not feeling well, it's going to send signals up to your head and make you not feel good up there as well. And lower mental health, um, cognitive issues, all of that kind of stuff, right? The gut can also communicate through channels through the bloodstream. Now, these are going to basically be our hormones and inflammatory signaling molecules within the bloodstream, right? These are produced within the stomach. They can travel through the blood and signal to the brain, right? So hormones produced by the brain signal down to cells in the body that affects smooth muscles, nerves, and immune cells, changing immune cell function. All of my dietary recommendations within this presentation will essentially improve not only this loop, but also the loop that we talked about right above here and everything else. So essentially, the diversity and abundance of the gut microbes vary in these individuals across their lifetime, right? So when we're looking at things like, say, Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease, which are going to be more cognitive issues that we see in later periods of life, it is associated with lowered diversity of the gut microbiome. So essentially, when we're looking at the gut diversity in the first 3 years of life, it's very, very low. It's okay because that's the incubation period for a lot of infants is going to be to basically get that diversity up. This would be another topic, but breast milk has a lot of benefits for new infants to basically bring their gut microbiome up, and that is why it's so important in that early age, in the early stages of life, that the gut microbiome does get brought up, essentially. So as age increase, so when we're looking at like middle-aged individuals, typically we don't see a lot of issues like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's in this phase, and it's correlated with the increase that we see in the diversity, or the increase in gut microbes basically within the gut in this stage of life. And then as these microbes are optimal, and then they start to decrease essentially later on in life, that's when we start seeing a lot of these issues that kind of come with the decline in a lot of individuals' health. And this is also correlated because a lot of the times as people age and get older, they stop eating as healthy of diets, and they also start eating less in general, which is not always the best thing that you want to, do. So a few things that actually affect the microbes, or how a lot of individuals have messed up microbes or have lowered them, is a poor diet that's basically too high in sugar, trans fats, or processed foods. Low diversity in the diet. So if you're eating like 12 different foods, you're not going to have a very diverse gut microbiome. Low fiber diets, long-term low carb diets or keto, anything more than about 6 months, is probably not optimal for gut diversity. High stress, just how we talked about, how everything that goes on in the brain. Like if we have stress, that can affect the body, that can affect the gut. Anyone that's ever taken antibiotics and hasn't done a round of like probiotics to recover that is at risk. Anyone that has a lot of food sensitivities that go unchecked, and they continue to eat those foods, essentially. Gluten for a lot of people does affect the microbes within the gut. Dairy in the same way. Drinking alcohol, especially more, I guess you could say, hardcore alcohols, are going to affect the gut microbiome and kill off a lot of the beneficial microbes within there. Things like wine are probably not going to be quite as bad. Overuse of antimicrobials, so like hand soaps or hand sanitizer. If you're using hand sanitizer 1,000 times a day, that's going to lower your gut diversity. If you were born with a C-section, you might have lowered gut diversity throughout your life, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to actually get that up throughout the entirety of your life, right? Anyone that doesn't exercise is going to have lower gut diversity. This could also be over-exercising, could be a bad thing, and then low stomach acid because we're not actually absorbing the food that we need in order to basically feed the microbes. So it's kind of a lot of individuals ask, what is like, how do you know that you have low gut microbiome, or low microbes within the gut, or how do you know that you have a bad gut? So generally, as far as direct testing goes, for gut microbes, I think research is not quite there yet, and we are still in the kind of discovery phases. But generally, when you look at healthy individuals, or if you look at rats and in studies that have what shows to be better gut microbiome status, so they are typically leaner individuals or leaner rats, and they have less disease and they have less sickness and all that kind of stuff. We're going to see Bifidobacterium species, and these are shown over and over again to be beneficial. And then Saccharomyces boulardii is going to be the main kind of supplement. So personally, like if I ever run antibiotics, which I don't do often, but if I ever was to, I would recommend that you do. And this is what I do, is I supplement for about 2 months afterwards with increased amounts of these two in supplement form, just to kind of rebuild that gut. But taking those long term is also going to be slightly more beneficial for you. And what you do with your diet is going to improve all that stuff as well. Now, this is a little bit easier to see. So, streptococcus is really bad gut, basically disease that you can have within your gut, and it's easy to test for. E. coli, candida, parasites, obviously yeast, H. pylori's, and secretory IgA. These are all things that we can test for, so it's easy to test for bad gut microbes and things like that within the gut. Obviously, we don't want parasites within the gut, and those are, like I said, easy to test for. So the doctor's data test right here. So this is one of the testing options that we have available on successfitnessandtraining.com/labs. You can purchase this lab there, get a consultation with us, and we can explain what your numbers mean. So what we see is expected beneficial flora. So these are basically going to be the flora that we expect in the gut, and they are okay. But just as an example, this specific individual here, this would be really alarming to me because it's so high. So it's a little bit too high, and they're not all beneficial as far as, in that level, that high of amount. So we'd want to bring that down a little bit. But then you can also see that this individual here has a lot in the yellow, which is imbalanced, and then a lot in the dysbiotic, which is in the red. So this lab makes it pretty simple for you to see, like, if you're good, if you're bad. Keep in mind that this is like a quarter half page of the top page, and this is like a 10-page lab report. So there's a lot more to this. Other markers that are being tested are going to be digestion and absorption, inflammation markers within the gut, inflammation within the gut, immune, so like the secretory IgA, and short chain fatty acids. So we can see if you're digesting your fats okay, intestinal health markers, and then microscopic appearance of the gut. Okay, this is a common test that we like to run, and it's a great value for what you get, and you can figure out a lot of information about your gut and general health. So here, this is a great one. So looking at functional GI issues and kind of a general rundown of what functional is versus, say, going to your primary care doctor and what kind of service you might get. So first off, when we're looking at functional GI issues, these are going to include things like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or any issue that's like hard to truly diagnose or be seen on a endoscopy or something like that by your doctor. You might just be told that you have IBS. It's kind of thrown out there often, and in the Western society, over 1/3 of the population has chronic gastrointestinal disorders. This, again, would be like irritable bowel syndrome or like the other one. Over 1/3 of the US population complains of GI symptoms. And these individuals basically go are told, like, yeah, you have IBS, but there's really nothing you can do, or like they say they have no issues at all by their doctors, but they complain about these GI symptoms, right? So basically that's saying that 100 million people in the United States suffer from GI issues, right? So they're complaining about their gut, but they may or may not be able to find help, right? Now, these people are not bad enough to warrant treatment via traditional conventional medicine, meaning that their doctor will tell them that they're normal, or they can give them a drug like a proton pump inhibitor that will essentially, at best, do nothing or basically make you worse. It does nothing to basically fix the underlying root cause issue, and it oftentimes makes things worse, right? So if you're looking at the red, yellow, green down below, healthy individuals are going to be within the green. They have no issues, no pain, low to no marks on an MSQ. So an MSQ is something that I commonly use. It's called a metabolic stress questionnaire. I will send that out to a lot of clients, have them fill that out, and then as we're working through the coaching process, we can see if they're improving on a lot of those health issues that they kind of mark high on the MSQ. Now, functional issues, this is where I would be able to help individuals out at. And essentially, they're not bad enough to warrant medical intervention, like I talked about, but they are bad enough to lower quality of life and cause basically daily discomfort. So this could be hormonal dysregulations, functional issues that basically lead to impaired weight loss or long-term health issues. So that's one example. For hormones, your hormones could be out of whack enough where it does affect your weight loss, muscle building, things like that. But it's not so bad, not so out of range that it's going to kill you. Therefore, your kind of Western medicine doctor won't warrant any treatment options. And the only treatment options that they would probably recommend are hormone replacement therapy. Okay. Now, bad enough to warrant medical treatment, this is going to be the red zone. So I like to try to get individuals out of the yellow into the green and not let them get into that red. That's where we can really work with, functional coaching and make sure that individuals don't get into that red, improving quality of life. So this is going to basically be, once you get to this stage, it's going to either be removal, it's going to be replacement. Basically, it's too late to recover what is lost or disrupted at this point, and that's where Western medicine strives. They like you when you're in the red, when you go to see them. Now we're moving into the discussion on neurotransmitters and HPA axis dysfunction here. So what we're looking at here is kind of an example of factors that can disrupt the HPA and neurotransmitter action within the body. So when we're looking at life issues like emotional stress, unemployment, death of a loved one, things like that, that just kind of stress you out that are within your life. And I like to look at it's all circling around essentially these two adrenal glands here in the middle. These are kind of representing very tired, sickly adrenal glands, right? Probably a lot of people's look like this, to be honest. But if you look at it, it's circled around these adrenal glands. So if we look at it, everything, life issues, lifestyle, body issues, diet, they all kind of correlate and all add up. So they all add to the allostatic load of your daily stressors, which affects your body. So smoking and the lifestyle, poor eating habits, diet, we're looking at lack of good food, white flour products, sugar, caffeine, so on and so forth. These are all things that are going to affect the neurotransmitter levels in our body and that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or HPA axis, and lead to dysfunction. Okay? So avoid all that. Now, when we're looking at the neurotransmitters in general, these are going to be basically modulators to the gut-brain axis. So essentially, we know of around 100 neurotransmitters in the body, and more will be discovered as we go. There certainly is more. Neurotransmitters haven't even been really known about or well researched for very long. We constantly learn new things about neurotransmitters, and it's a very interesting field of study. So we have norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin, 5-HTP, HT. Those are going to be our main kind of neurotransmitters that we'll be looking at today. What these do is they regulate blood flow, regulate gut motility, nutrient absorption, gastrointestinal immune system, and generally the gut microbiome. So in pathological states like inflammatory bowel disease, basically disease is basically just a step above irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and Parkinson's disease. These talked about here, neurotransmitters, are dysregulated, causing a lot of gastrointestinal problems within those individuals. There's going to be two main types of neurotransmitters, excitatory and inhibitory. So some will excite us, some will kind of bring us down and help us relax and recover and sleep and all that kind of stuff. And then two others that we'll kind of touch on are dopamine and acetylcholine later on. So here's one example of how dysregulated neurotransmitters can affect things within the body. So individuals with anxiety basically are shown to have elevated norepinephrine and decreased GABA. So that's just one example. We see a dysregulation that causes anxiety. So when we see norepinephrine up and GABA down, that is going to cause more things like anxiety. So again, we'll talk about this, but when we're looking at neurotransmitters, we do want to kind of test these out before we just go ahead and willy-nilly supplement with neurotransmitter enhancing supplements, because it can push you in the wrong direction. But generally, if we can kind of confirm that GABA is probably low, norepinephrine is up, we might want to bring that up in individuals that flag high for anxiety on MSQ. So people suffering from IBS have slightly lower mucosal lining in the gut and higher levels of serotonin. So we see higher levels of serotonin in individuals with IBS and lowered mucosal lining, which again would lead to that leaky gut. When we see the lining, the mucosal lining in the gut compromised, that's going to lead to the ability for basically particles of food to pass through the gut and cause a lot of issues within the body. A lot of factors that will essentially lower those serotonin and immune modulators within the body are going to be gastrointestinal inflammation, gastrointestinal disorders. These are going to be things like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, celiac disease, and diverticulitis. So it is important to know if you have these issues, and if you do, you don't want to, like, if you have celiac disease, obviously you want to figure that out and not continue to eat gluten because it's going to cause more and more issues. Dopamine here. So the neurotransmitter dopamine. This is a neurotransmitter in the nervous system. It's in within hormones and it's within the endocrine system. It's very important to understand that there is a relationship between dopamine and mental health, and the fact that dopamine is within hormones. When we see lowered hormones, we see lower dopamine, so on and so forth. Everything's connected, like we kind of talked about in the beginning. Um, One way that you can look at hormones, we do run this test here. This would be called a Dutch test. So we're looking at estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, lots of other stuff here. Again, this is a quarter of a page, half a page about of a 5-page hormone test that we run, right? Okay. So dopamine is a very important neurotransmitter as well. And if we're looking at dopamine, when we see individuals with low dopamine levels, a lot of times these vitamins here, so B12, B6, vitamin C, SAMe, folate, copper, and iron, are all going to be lowered, or impaired in individuals that have low dopamine. So when we're looking at dopamine, we need phenylalanine, and then that needs to be converted into tyrosine, and then that needs to essentially be converted into dopamine. And you can look at this a little bit more on your own, but when we're looking at this, you'll see within the pathways here, these nutrients that I talked about on the side here are all necessary for this whole process to take place in order for everything to actually make its way into dopamine, which is what we can use up to, improve our mood and feel good and all that kind of stuff. We need all these vitamins and all of this kind of stuff to take place first. So it's very important. Everything connects, right? GABA is going to be nature's Valium. It basically puts you to sleep, helps you calm down, all that kind of stuff. And acetylcholine here. So just talking about these two. Like I talked about with the GABA, very important for calming, sleep, all that kind of stuff. And then acetylcholine is essential for learning and memory. So low acetylcholine deficiency is going to be kind of typical of those like senior moments where you're like, what did I eat for breakfast? Or something like that, right? When we're looking at neurotransmitter supplements specifically, it is important, and I include that it is important to actually try to look at what your levels are. So at the end, I include a actual kind of test, or I guess, yeah, just a test that you can take. And it's a great way to look and see what neurotransmitters might be a little bit off, what ones might be high, so on and so forth, before you just go and, supplement with everything that I recommend. I don't recommend that you do this at all, or do that at all. But when you're looking at GABA supplements, I look at supplements that boost GABA, not direct GABA supplements. So theoretically, GABA, the molecules within there are too large to cross the brain, or the gut-brain barrier, to get into the bloodstream. So when you supplement straight GABA, it's not really going to get into the bloodstream as well as you might think. Although that's the case, I have seen some individuals that, benefit from GABA supplementation. So if you do try it, try it out and see if it works for you. But I like to look at GABA boosting supplements. So these are going to be things like magnesium, L-theanine, and kava. These are going to be awesome for actually boosting the natural levels of GABA within your body. So when we're looking at acetylcholine, bringing that level up, this is going to be, you can do just choline, but a lot of times choline is not going to absorb as well. So alpha GPC, which is a form of choline, is going to be absorbed much better, and that will bring your acetylcholine levels up. Dopamine, when we're looking at dopamine, again, look back at all the other supplements that I did recommend here. So for the pathways, phenylalanine into tyrosine into dopamine, all of these are necessary. But when we're looking here, L-tyrosine, and then BCAPA here is very, very helpful for bringing those dopamine levels up. And also they're great for balancing. So like if you have low dopamine or high dopamine, they really just help to balance things out. So serotonin, SAMe, or St. John's Wort. Don't do both. Never do both of these. You do one or the other. You can cycle it, but never do both at the same time. Yeah. And then be very careful with any of these recommendations if you are taking any medicines or medications like antidepressants, since they have similar effects to SAMe. So you never want to combine like SAMe or St. John's Wort with, say, serotonin reuptake inhibitor, SSRI, something like that. Never want to mix those two. And if you do add supplements in and you're already on medication, I would recommend that you talk to your doctor beforehand just to make sure that there's no contraindications there. Okay. Gluten, I do like to talk about gluten. So gluten's not the enemy for everyone, but a lot of individuals have a hard time digesting gluten. So it's hard to digest. It's a hard to digest protein, essentially, that should be broken down in the stomach, and it is broken down in the stomach by powerful hydrochloric acid. The problem is a lot of individuals don't have enough hydrochloric acid to actually break this gluten down, and it's not commonly digested the greatest for most individuals. So therefore, I don't like a lot of gluten in anyone's diet. That doesn't mean that you can't eat any, and you kind of got to look at that for yourself. But it affects the nervous system, and it is associated with the risk of developing peripheral neuropathy, such as like numbness and tingling or burning in the hands or feet, things like that. You can also lose balance if you have gluten issues and you eat too much gluten. And then there's also gluten-induced brain inflammation. And those with like celiac disease are going to have it. Those with celiac disease will experience this, but to an extent, everyone will experience inflammation within the brain from eating too much gluten. Everyone. Okay. And then there is such a thing as non-celiac gluten sensitivity as well, which is something to be conscious of. You don't always have to have celiac disease to have issues with gluten. It's basically the main point there. So now let's look at the best types of diets, or the diets that I recommend commonly. So if we're looking at diets in general, the main diets that I am going to recommend are going to be things like Mediterranean, healthy paleo, healthy over vegetarian, so it's primarily vegetarian, healthy vegan, so if it's more of a moral issue there where you feel like your morals lean towards not eating meat, totally understand. Go ahead and do a vegan diet, but you have to do it in a healthy way. I like this quote by Michael Pollan here. So eat plants, mostly green, not too much. I think that's a great quote. Just very simple. A lot of us don't eat enough plants in our diets. So if we're looking at the pyramid here, this is just a basic Mediterranean pyramid. I would change some things personally if I made my own pyramid, but this is pretty good. If we're looking at it, you can see down at the bottom, happy individuals throughout the day, dancing, walking, playing ball. So active, happy individuals. And then you can see the family there sitting around the table enjoying a meal. So you don't see this individual, driving down in their car, eating food, slamming food in their face. They're sitting down, enjoying the company of the family, and they're eating their meal. So it's in a nice calm environment, which helps with gastric juices, essentially enzymes, acids, and all those things that help digestion. And then we'll look above that. We see a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, a lot of healthy oils, things like olive oil, avocado, all of those. And then we see a ton of fruits and vegetables, like I talked about. Those are more important, essentially, and those should make up more of the mass of your diet than things like protein and fat and all that, right? Above that, we see fish. And if we really look at a true Mediterranean, so if you see a true Mediterranean, protein is going to be between 10 and 20% of calories. And most of it's going to come from seafood. Things like fish, fatty fish, sardines, shrimp, whatever is this, healthy seafood option. I do like to do smaller fish mostly, but salmon is good. And then above that, we see poultry and eggs. So poultry and eggs can be eaten just in smaller amounts, and then meats and sweets, very much at the top. So I think generally I would probably put meats a little bit more important at this, and look at blood work and stuff like that. If somebody has low ferritin or whatever it might be, obviously you do want to eat a little bit more meat, and vice versa. If you have high levels of iron or ferritin, then we see a little bit of wine. I don't really recommend eating or drinking wine or alcohol in general more than maybe once a week. So the worst diets for you are going to be like any low carb diets for a very long time. We don't want to run long term keto, in my opinion. Short term, it can be good, or in certain scenarios. Lovers, if you're eating just a ton of processed food based on calories alone. Weight Watchers builds an unhealthy relationship with food and counting calories, so points. Carnivore, not a great diet in general. I think you're missing out on a lot of micronutrients, phytonutrients, fiber, and all that. Higher risk for colon cancer as well with that one. And then Atkins, which is just way too high in omega 6s. Okay. All of my diet recommendations have some things in common. So none of my clients or myself either have like specific diet that they follow. Like there's no cookie cutter plan that everyone follows. But all my diets are essentially balanced. They are not zero carbohydrates. When done correctly, they contain lots of vegetables, sometimes 7 cups plus a day. Lots of fruits, 1 to 4 cups daily. 3 to 4 meals. I like 3 to 4 meals. Lots of high fiber foods. I recommend a minimum of 30 to 40 grams a day for females or men. More for men. A lot of times 50, 60. I personally get up as high as 100 grams of fiber a day oftentimes. Mainly unprocessed foods, so we don't want a lot of processed foods. And then there's high satiating foods, so things that are going to fill you up and reduce the chances of overeating. Right? Moderate to high protein, depending on training needs and goals. So if I have a bodybuilder that I'm working with and we've worked through a lot of the functional issues, GI issues, all of that is healthy, then we're going to go into more higher protein to basically boost the outcomes of what we're doing with training and try to achieve the physique that they are looking for. The diets are going to basically be primarily plant-based proteins and seafood. Primarily. Doesn't mean it has to be 100% that and you can't eat meat. Just looking back at that pyramid, we have more plant-based and seafoods than we do straight up protein, right? If your diet consists of more protein than anything else, you're probably not optimally getting healthy. As far as like if you're always just sitting down to a giant steak and that's what's making up the bulk of your meals, you're missing out. High omega 3s, low omega 6s. Okay. So low to moderate. The omega 3s always have to be higher than the omega 6s. How do we know how much omega 3s you need? We can test. So I have a test that we run. Obviously, it's not my test. It's a test that we run here through this company that runs lab tests. And it's a trusted company, the one that I run myself, the one that we run for clients, and the one that I recommend. So when we're looking at this one, we see a relationship of all the omega-3 family. So basically, plant omega-3s, marine. We have ALA, EPA, DPA, DHA, and omega-3 score. It's going to be a combination of all of those. You want to get in between 1 to 2 grams or 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams daily of combined EPA and DHA, right? Now, and this will also show us our levels of omega-6 fatty acids, which are going to be the bad fats. Linoleic acid, it's a plant-based omega-6. Soybean oil, walnuts. Walnut oil or processed walnuts are going to be higher in those. DGLA and arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid is like the bad guy from Superman, right? It's like Superman's kryptonite or something. Arachidonic acid is not good. You want to stay clear of that as far as that goes. And you want to make sure that your levels are good. So we want to make sure that your levels are not too high, which is why I recommend testing. One thing that's kind of cool, it's about $150 for this test. This test, or that $150 that you are going to be investing into yourself, can tell you whether or not you have a high risk of sudden cardiovascular death. And if you get your levels up, which you can easily do through diet and supplementation, and we can do that specifically to your needs when you run this test, we can reduce the percentage of sudden cardiovascular death by 90%. Straight up, right? So spend $150, spend a little bit more money on the fish and different diet things that you might need to bring your levels up, lower your risk, and increase your chances of living by about 90%. Pretty cool, right? Huh. Yeah. Invest in yourself sometimes. Pull a little bit out of the pocket, spend a little less on fast food, restaurants, alcohol, and your body will thank you. You'll thank yourself as well in the future. Okay. The Mediterranean diet has explicitly been shown to improve the gut microbiome. Now we're kind of tying this all back now. Talked about the gut, what's good, what's bad. Saccharomyces boulardii or Saccharomyces and Bifidobacterium species, like we talked about on slide 10, right? Mediterranean diet will help. It'll bring that up, right? It'll improve that gut microbiome. One thing that can help with the process is improving your omega-3s to omega-6 ratios. Once again, that will help with the brain injury scenario and just improving all that signaling, lowering or increasing, in this case, vagal flow, lowering the chances of leaky gut, all of that kind of stuff. We can get this from the diet by eating more fish. If you get more omega-3s in, and that's going to lower the amount of fatty, basically omega-6s from meat and different pre kind of packaged fatty foods that you'll eat are going to have more omega-6s. So brain cells with high levels of omega-3 in their membranes are thought to be better at communicating with other cells, and essentially that's an essential process of brain function. So omega-3s might have benefits for improving the brain function, right? Now, if we're looking at omega-3s, fish oil, supplements, fatty fish, now I sometimes will recommend like an algae plant-based supplement to my vegan clients, but know that you're never going to get omega-3s that are as good as seafood. Never going to happen. That would be a whole kind of discussion, but essentially what needs to happen is we need to get that ALA, alpha linoleic acid, into EPA or DHA, and as well as DPA, which is a marine based as well. But if we're looking at the plant based here, we can only get an ALA, and that needs to be converted. Whereas which is a very expensive process in the body, just make it simple. But if that conversion needs to happen, a lot of it is not going to be absorbed. So we're not going to get nearly as much. And those individuals are probably going to need a lot more than that 1 to 2 gram recommendation, probably more like 4, 5, 6 grams, which is kind of crazy to get in the diet as well. It's not super practical, but it's what's necessary. And if we're looking at fish oil, it's literally just straight what we need. It's boom in the body, and it's what we need. So I say go for the seafood. If it's truly ethical reasons, you can do a plant-based one. But if you're okay with taking a little bit of fish oil, maybe do that. Eat mostly plant-based across the board otherwise, but it's up to you. I'll give you the information. You can use it how you will, right? BDNF, so brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This is a chemical within your brain that helps new brain cells grow and survive. So basically grow and survive our toxic world, right? It protects brain cells from damage. BDNF is kind of like a brain fertilizer. Helps the brain cells grow, make connections with each other, and thrive within the body, within the brain. These are likely to basically contribute to preventing depression and cognitive decline as you get older as well. Adherence to a Mediterranean diet, Mediterranean dietary patterns, and supplementation of nuts seems to improve plasma BDNF levels, especially among those with depression. So basically, we'll see more increase in BDNF levels from a Mediterranean diet if somebody has depression already. So we see that BDNF is lowered in individuals that have depression across the board. And we see that the Mediterranean diet will bring that up across the board, but especially in those with basically depression, like I said. So Mediterranean diet is going to be the best diet that you can do for improving your brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Other things that you can do are improving your physical exercise, so increasing the exercise that you do. This helps with protein expression in the hypothalamus and other brain basically critical areas. And mRNA, which is basically molecules that carry the genetic information needed to make new proteins within the body. Probiotics, again, are shown to improve BDNF expression, basically, possibly through the involvement of the gut hormones, and this is shown in rats. Antioxidants, so polyphenol antioxidants, these are going to be in dark chocolate, coffee, blueberries, and extra virgin olive oil. These are all foods that you want to eat in a Mediterranean diet. Butyrate, produced when good bacteria in your gut help with your body breakdown and the dietary fiber in your large intestine, colon. These are going to be things like almonds, chickpeas, apples, and garlic. I don't recommend that people eat a ton of chickpeas due to lectin levels, but some chickpeas are okay. Supplements, omega-3s like we talked about, magnesium, specifically this form of magnesium here, zinc, niacin, curcumin, medium chain triglycerides, which are going to be like MCT oil or coconut oil, things like that, coconut milk, things like that, L-theanine, calming magnesium, found in green tea, a calming amino acid, I'm sorry about that, found in green tea. That's why I like to recommend green tea a lot. And reverse tyrosol. I think I pronounced that wrong. I usually do, but that one right there, right? Breakfast. So this is a little bit of a meal example of what I would give generally to clients. Again, I don't usually do general stuff. I do recommendations based on lab work, analysis, MSQ, talking to individuals, a few other things as well. But generally, this is going to be a good kind of starting point for a lot of people. So I like to start the day off with a smoothie. And actually, you'll see here, a lot of individuals have a hard time getting enough food in. So if you do 2 smoothies a day, which is meal 1 and 3 are smoothies or liquid meals, it helps individuals because these smoothies are going to have a full spectrum multivitamin supplement within them. All the stuff that you need within that multivitamin supplement. I'll send out that information or make it accessible through our website as well. So you'll be able to find that as far as what supplements I recommend, what multivitamin supplement I recommend, so on and so forth. But I like to start the day with a smoothie. I like to have fruits, protein, fiber, and healthy fats. So 1 to 2 scoops of protein, depending on body size and stuff like that, with addition to a full spectrum multivitamin supplement. 2 cups frozen fruit or fresh fruits, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed powder, and then about 2 thumbs worth of dark chocolate, or you could do a healthy nut butter. And then we got lots of vegetables for meal 2. Get a lot of different colors and textures and all that kind of stuff with vegetables. Fatty fish the size of your hand. Very simple. 1 tablespoon of olive oil and vinegar for dressing. So 1 tablespoon separately and then vinegar for dressing. A thumb-sized portion of walnuts. And then again, smoothie, little bit pretty similar to the meal 1 smoothie. 2 cups vegetables. Meal 4, beef or chicken, the size of your hand. Very simple. Half an avocado. And you can do a little dark chocolate for dessert. This here is probably going to be a lot higher fat than a lot of individuals would eat when they're on a quote unquote diet, but it'll be much lower fat than what you would eat if you went to McDonald's or went out to eat once or twice a day. And those fats are going to be much healthier than what you would get from any of those places, these fats that I'm recommending. So again, all my kind of diet recommendations have some things in common. At the end of the day, calories in, calories out, or versus calories out It doesn't always work. It doesn't always work for unhealthy individuals. Unhealthy individuals are going to be individuals in that yellow kind of zone, like I talked about. Not bad enough to warrant medical intervention, but bad enough to cause decreased quality of life, if that makes sense there. Okay. The best thing you can do is find your baseline of calories where you're currently eating. I don't use BMR calculators. I don't use calculators. You want to track your body weight and what you eat for a week, weekdays and weekends. If your weight stayed the same and you average 200 calories across the week, then you can try eating 2,250 calories a day for a week while tracking your weight again. I do recommend a lot of times people try eating a little bit more and see what happens first, because then you can start pulling away. If you pull away, it's harder to add back in. So I recommend that you start a little higher than you might think. You should start and then pull away from there. You got plenty of time to diet, plenty of time. You shouldn't be coming to any individual for help if you only have like 12 weeks to diet. Start sooner, to be honest. Macros that I recommend for a general individual for a 200-pound person are going to be about you can take your body weight times 0.8, take fats times your body weight times 0.4, and then fill in the rest of the calories with carbs, right? Once you find your pro and your fat, fill in the rest with carbs. This would be about a 2,250 for a 200-pound individual, and the macros would break out to 160 grams of protein, 80 grams of fat, and then the rest would, the carbs would be at 222. So there you go. Pretty simple. You can follow that equation if you want, use it out. Now, why do we need supplements in our diet? Very quickly going to touch on this. So we see a lot of degeneration within our soil, a lot less nutrients. So one example is we see 16% less calcium, 38% less B2 within our bodies. A lot of people are low in B vitamins. You wonder why? Our soil is basically just being overused, and we have cheap fertilizers, food not picked when ripe. Weakened digestion is another big thing. People skipping breakfast. All of this is basically why we have depleted nutrition through our bodies. Remember in slide 1, I talked about how we're overfed, but we're undernourished. That's why. Again, not only is it the poor diet, but even if you're trying to do a healthy diet, it's more tricky for us to get all those necessary nutrients in. That's why supplements come in. That's why supplements are so helpful. So I supplement. The supplement list, if you're working with me one-on-one, is probably never going to be as long as what I'm recommending here. These are all just things that you can take. And if you took all of these, you're not going to have any like contraindications between the two, except for some of the neurotransmitter ones, like we talked about, SAMe and St. John's wort being the two main. But all of these here for general supplements that I recommend: fish oil, multivitamin, magnesium, ashwagandha, 2 different forms, vitamin D, methylated B complex, which is a bunch of different B vitamins in a methylated form, so you have to actually absorb them. Digestive enzymes, zinc. I like balanced zinc. I'll recommend that. Probiotic. So it's a zinc combination. So it's just one form of zinc. Your body absorbs it much better. We already talked about these neurotransmitter supplements, so I'm not going to touch on those too much. And then we also already talked on the BDNF ones. So we're gonna jump into our action steps. What I want you guys to kind of follow up with this. So learning information has no good if you don't implement it or pass it on to others. So please share this. Share this videos. Share this video with anyone that you know and love, and tell them to watch it. Tell them to give the information a try. Maybe you can find a friend that wants to do some of this stuff in here. Try an automated training diet, for example. Maybe you want to find a friend that wants to watch this video and you guys can try out a Mediterranean diet together. Okay? 3 action steps that you can take. Test your neurotransmitter status. You can go on the internet, type in this Bavarian Ben personality type assessment, and you'll find that. You can find a PDF on the internet. Easy to fill out. It's the best neurotransmitter test. See what it says, see what it tells you, and then based on if it's like, hey, you might have low dopamine, come to my form here, look at dopamine and start supplementing with some L-tyrosine, for an example. right? If you have low acetylcholine levels, get some alpha GPC. Okay, very simple. Add 1 to 2 new foods into your diet from this presentation. So if we look up, at some of the foods that I recommend, like fatty fish, multivitamin supplement, frozen fruit, fresh fruit, whatever it might be, just add 1 or 2. Don't worry about taking anything else away. Just add 1 or 2 things. Adding things to your diet can sometimes be the greatest thing that you can do for your diet. Little pro tip there. Now, assess the number one supplement you feel basically the best as far as like what's going to best fit your needs. So what's going to best fit your needs if you're looking at these supplements and why you might take them, if you're looking at the neurotransmitters, if you're like, hey, I probably have low dopamine levels or I have low serotonin levels. And I did the test, I have low serotonin. All right, cool. Grab some SAMe as long as it doesn't contraindicate any of your medications that you're taking, and start taking some SAMe. Okay. Now, my promise to you is blink page. No, I'm just kidding. So I don't really want to type in that. I just kind of want to talk to you guys about this. So my promise to you, if you follow the information in this, I guarantee you, you will receive some results. You will receive health, and you will become healthier. Now, I can't promise you that you'll be able to follow it. That's where, one-on-one coaching comes in. I can't promise that continued progress or like fully reaching your goals will fully come, because a lot of times that requires adjustments to the plan and all of that kind of stuff. If you want to reach out to me with any questions, please do so, and I can help you kind of customize this plan a little bit. If you want to jump on a one-off call with me, we can set that up. If you want to jump on programming with me or coaching, feel free to reach out about that as well. But I do promise that, as you work through all of this stuff, this will help you to stay within that yellow or get into the green and avoid moving into that red, because all of the issues that kind of overcome us are curable or preventable, in my opinion. I believe that we can always prevent anything that happens. Now, I can't say that I'll treat, cure, diagnose any disease, nor do I really want to, nor do I need to. Get the body healthy and, avoid those things that way, right? And then as far as all the supplements and all that go, I can't promise you that any of them will truly help you, because I can't always promise or the quality of those supplements if you're not taking them from the essentially links that I recommend. Then I can. But I can't promise you that they'll help, because they might not be the specific one that you need. That would take more assessment, MSQ forms, history, and all that kind of stuff to kind of help things. I will say all of the dietary recommendations that I recommended, no matter really who you are, they're going to help you. They're going to help improve things, and they're going to make you feel better. They're going to make you healthier as long as you can stick to them. So, once again, my name is Hunter Grabowski. Thank you so much for taking the time and reviewing all this with me. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions or want to clarify anything, feel free to reach out. My email, you can probably find it on the website. You can reach out to anyone that says contact us and just say that you want to talk to me on our website. But my personal email is Hunter C, the letter C, at Success Fitness and MN, so just MN like Minnesota.com if you want to reach out. Otherwise, like I said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you once again for taking the time, and take a little time to digest what you just learned. Review your notes, review the slides, and like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much, and have a good one.